All right, have and have not fans, kind of like my other video in regards to Hannah putting the piece of the puzzle together between Charles and Candace, as well as whether or not Hannah is right for keeping Candace away from the funeral planning for Quincy. Again, this is a combination video of two videos. Again, originally my list for this week's videos before the next episode came out, I had about 7 or 8 video ideas, but while I was actually getting the videos together, I just thought that instead of putting up a ton of videos, that I should actually just put them together because the topics are so intertwined. And again, the two-stage, I guess you could say, theme of this video is, and I even mentioned this in my other video about, is what is going to happen to Erica. It has to do with two important things. Number one is Mitch becoming, well, more with his family, is becoming more of a Malone now, and also the question of who's the next big bad, or who's going to be Candace's next big enemy, or just because of the whole. And again, it goes back to Maggie Day, and what I say by that is, remember the scene again, season 2, when it was who was it? It was Catherine and Veronica sitting outside, near the pool at Catherine's house. Maggie came. It was like a brief meeting, and it was about the problem of Candace, and she was the initial one to mention the fact that why not get Quincy out of jail to take care of Candace, because sometimes in order to deal with a dog, you have to get an even bigger dog to take care of them. And remember, she was the one to slide the papers over to a wonderful attorney as Veronica to get him out of jail. So, and again, and I just love that about the writing. I don't know if Tyler Perry does this on purpose, but the fact that these things that some characters say or do seasons ago are still relevant today, where again, they wanted to get rid of Candace to stop her from messing up the governor campaign for Jim and David, but bringing out Quincy turned out to be a negative side effect for almost everybody, just because Quincy attacked Veronica twice, beat up Jim, and again the list goes on. But the real theme of this video is kind of like Candace's focus in terms of her enemies, because every time she gets out of one situation, things just get worse and worse. Because remember, even though she got out of the situation with the Malones, because she pretty much most of the time when she underestimates somebody, or dips her toe into the deep end of the water and almost drowns, it's one of those scenarios where she loses everything, and she's, now that I think about it, almost every situation where she's almost in a near-death state, because remember, she almost was shot by the Malones. She was almost killed by Quincy. She was almost killed by War on multiple occasions. Let's not even talk about when he was attacking her physically and sexually, but the scene where, he came by the house, had the gun, put the little, I'm not really familiar with guns, but, kind of like the little device he put at the end of the gun to make it a clean cut shot, probably to negate any kind of noise, I'm guessing. I don't know. If you know what kind of gun it was, hey, let me know in the comments, because I sure as heck don't know. Pretty much this, he was about to shoot her, then we got the opening title, and then she moved out of the way, then confessed about the money and said, hey, I'll give it to you, the $2 million. So we get to those scenes where she's almost dead, and of course, the scene in the restaurant where Warlock literally got up, and before he could fully, we saw him pull out his gun, but before he could even point it at Candace, wham, the Malone got him. So now begs the question, who's going to be the next big bad? Yeah, we got Veronica, she the bad bitch, she the ice queen, but that's not what I'm referring to. It really has to go back to Candace, because Candace and Jim, because those two are intertwined, because as I said time and time again, all roads lead back to Jim and Candace at the beginning of the series, because usually whatever villain is on Candace's case comes after Jim as well, being that Quincy was after Candace. Next thing you know, he was dating, so to speak, Amanda. Then he got into a fight with Jim. Then you have Warlock, who was Candace's hired muscle, had Jim tied up in the war room. That was his scenario. And then she got on his bad side when he found out about her lying to him. And then him and Jim and Warlock kind of formed an uneasy alliance based off their circumstances. Lo and behold, Warlock didn't, live up to his edge of the bargain. And then because of that, Mama Rose was even more furious with Jim. So let's put it this way, whatever happens to Candace usually has an effect on Jim in one way or another. So the question is, who's going to be her next big bad? And something you really want to keep notice of is the fact that, typically speaking, whenever Candace has somebody on her heels trying to get her for her life or whatever, it's usually somebody that she used to be able to trust, being that, you know, her and Quincy used to have something in the past. Those two were, as Hannah put it, you know, pretty much together in terms of, you know, conning people. It was almost it's hard to tell if they were like in a full-on relationship or just, you know, were attracted to each other due to their lifestyles. I mean, we really don't know that much. We just know that those two had a kid together. That's pretty much the extent of their relationship that we know about, aside from, you know, him beating her and whatnot. But I mean, like, in terms of them on good terms. Then it turned around that, you know, Candace wanted to leave Quincy, but he wasn't having it unless she brought him some money. And that led to him faking the death of Quincy Jr., at least telling her that Quincy was dead. Then, you know, of course, him being out of jail because somebody, and again, we never get confirmation if Candace was the one to drop dime on Quincy. I don't think that Candace was the one to really snitch on him. Honestly, in my opinion, I don't think. But it's almost like me thinking that Wyatt still wasn't the one to hit Little Lizzie. I feel like it was one of those guys at that crack house that took his car, hit Little Lizzie, then Wyatt was able to get away. But allegedly, you know, it really was Wyatt, based off what he said about fighting off some guys, getting in the car. A few of them, you know, hanging on to the back of the car when he sped off. Then he backed up the car, went up, you know, drove off faster, and then hit the little girl. Allegedly, that's what happened. So at this point, again, the way I know you're probably thinking, man, shut up, it was Wyatt. I felt the same way about Amanda's death not being a suicide. But lo and behold, 2.5 seasons later, we get confirmation, so to speak, from Jennifer that it wasn't a suicide, but it was an investigation of a homicide that's still going on. So that's why I still, in a way, don't believe Wyatt really was the one to hit Little Lizzie. But given the fact that we haven't seen Michael's daughter, nor have we gotten any information about any of the other people at the crack house, it seems clear that maybe Wyatt really was the one to hit Little Lizzie, so we can leave it at that. But I'm just saying that you just look at all the times where these characters do something to affect another character, just like Quincy. Because again, he used to be on good terms with Candace, then she wanted to walk away but couldn't. Next thing you know, he died. And her hired muscle Warlock, again, somebody she's been on good terms with since they were kids, but because of her lies and deception, he turned cold. Well, I wouldn't say that he went at Benedict Arnold on Candace. He had a legit reason, but at the same time, I really don't like his character shift. I went, you know, almost near psycho stalkerish, so to speak, and him making dumb decisions. That's why he got killed off. But again, I'll do a Warlock video before the next episode. But also look at the fact that again, Warlock was an ally at one point, but then turned coat. So that leads to the question, who's next? We went from Quincy to Warlock, but who's next? It's a power struggle. It's a power struggle. And I mean, before I jump to this person, let's talk about three potential threats to Candace in the near future. Number one, Mitch, being the fact that he is a trusted friend. Again, used to be a love interest, so to speak. You can argue that Warlock may have been a love interest in the past, but given the fact that, you know, Candy Kane, and the fact that those two are pretty close. I mean, when he was first introduced, I thought of Warlock more like Candace's big brother on the streets, pretty much like Warlock was to Candace on the streets what Benny was to Candace in the home. You know what I mean? In terms of being somebody that had her back. But, you know, the more you look at it, like the fact, you know, like Candace wanted War to go straight, and, you know, those two having just scenes where it felt like, I wouldn't say sexual tension, but more like maybe an attraction to one another. Given the fact that, hey, Candace didn't even know the fact that Warlock and Erica were a thing, so you just never know. But given the fact that we know that Mitch and Candace used to have a relationship in the past, however, he never introduced Candace to his family. I think it had to do with the fact she was black, or, you know, hey, whatever. But given the fact that, you know, Mitch, like Warlock, is willing to do anything for Candace, given the fact that he did something that's out of his character, which he said he would never do, which is become more like the Malones, because Mama Rose even said to David that Mitch doesn't want to be part of this lifestyle. He only calls, you know, up the Malones or me when there's a favor involved. He pulled a favor for Candace, just like Warlock put his entire operation in jeopardy to abduct Jim Cryer. And remember, that was in the initial scene with Warlock after, you know, Candace didn't even have any shoes. Her apartment was emptied out. She went to Warlock for $5,000 and then talked about the whole fact that, you know what, if you could just bring Jim here, I'll do the rest of it. And he was reluctant at first because that's a federal judge. It's like, oh, don't tell me you're scared, War. I ain't scared. You know, that kind of thing. So I feel like the same thing with Mitch. Like, you know, he put himself out there to help out Candace, but at the same time, that smirk that Mitch made in the scene in the preview for next week where Mom Rose is like, so what should we do with her? And then he made that smirk, and it goes back to the lighting. It goes back to the lighting. And then we even have a scene where Candace and Mitch are in the car, and it looks like I think Mitch said something along the lines, hey, it had to be done. He had to go. I don't know if I like that, because again, it just kind of hints at the fact that maybe Mitch might turn on the dark side. You just, not chocolate, you know, like liking Candace, but in terms of, you know, the dark side, he might become an enemy. We just don't know. We just don't know. Now the next suspect is Charles, and we've seen his truth. We've seen Chucky. So it seems to me when it comes to Charles, I mean, this is obviously a short choice. Put it this way, he's making stupid mistakes, just like so many characters in the show. He's underestimating Candace. Well, honestly, he's not underestimating Candace. He's pretty much saying that, hey, as long as I have control, then I can trust you. So he is keeping his guard up, you know, making sure he knows her every move. But Candace being Candace, at some point, she will pretty much overpower Charles. And then that might turn him into an enemy. And he's probably the most dangerous enemy at this point to have, given the fact that he's a presidential candidate and he has all that power. Not to mention what he told Landon about him being a street level criminal in his origin, so to speak. So there's no telling what he's capable of outside of the presidency, you know, the campaign and his, you know, his time as a senator. So there's no telling what he's capable of. Now this leads to the final potential suspect, and I know this is probably going to get a lot of backlash. Like, oh hell no! Could it be Quita? Hear me out. We haven't seen Quita for a while. The last time I believe was, you know, when she and that boy, you know, made Wyatt take them to his house and they had sex on his bed and whatnot. And Justin came and they had him arrested, but due to his jealousy of Jeffrey and Wyatt, he let them go. So Quita and that boy are off. We don't know where they're at. Keep in mind that it's like a power vacuum, so to speak. You know what? If anything interrupts that vacuum, there's going to be chaos. Quincy's gone. So and again, we don't know for sure, but maybe by default, the fact that, you know, Quita was his sister, maybe she's the new head of, you know, his branch of thugs and whatnot in the hood. You know, maybe she's in control of Quincy's operation. But think about Warlock, given the fact that he's dead now, not to mention, let's just say his lieutenants are dead as well. You know, pretty much all of them that stormed the restaurant. I wouldn't say that it was Warlock's full crew, because I'm pretty sure he might have some dealers and whatnot on the streets. But let's put it this way. The general and his top lieutenants are gone. They were all killed off. So one could argue that Quita's technically the most powerful hood, or excuse me, the most powerful drug lord, so to speak, or gangster in Savannah, Georgia, outside of the Malones. We're talking street level, you know, gangs and whatnot, not the Malones, but street level gangs. And then the fact that she still suspects, you know, Candace and whatnot having foul play involved with Quincy's death, she could become she is unlikely, you know, her being, you know, she's the most unlikely. But when you look at the facts, it does make sense that Quita could be the next big bad, so to speak. She doesn't seem quite as competent as Quincy or Warlock, but technically speaking, based off the hierarchy in the streets, she may be the, you know, most powerful right now. So she might be, you know, returning as the big bad. But in terms of danger, I feel like, you know, Mitch and Charles are still, you know, higher ranking than Quita. But technically speaking, you could argue that Quita is the next in line to be the big bad, because her big brother's gone. Warlock and his crew, well, or let's just say again, his top lieutenants are all dead. So there's no telling who's the next big bad will be, but Quita is in the running. Let's just put it that way. I know most people don't like her, but at the same time, she's still in the running. So with that being said, this video was just kind of getting some insight into the fact that Mitch is, could be the next, big bad. So could, Charles and maybe even Quita. So with that being said, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below of this trend we've seen in the haves and the have-nots, where when one wolf dies, an even bigger one comes and takes its place.